Hey everybody, welcome to the monthly Lens Studio Twitch stream. I'm Travis, and...
Hi, my name is Amir.
So this is the Twitch stream for the month of May. We're actually going to be covering a few things today. So I think the first thing we're going to go through is one of the new components for Lens Studio 2.0, which is the text component. We actually talked about it in the past, but wanted to go into a little more detail of some of the functionality that's been added to the text component. Specifically, dynamic text is a really cool feature of that component that we want to make sure everybody knows about. And then second, Amir's actually going to walk through two different projects. So you'll have these two projects to kind of play with after the stream. They're both using face mask in two unique ways. So what face mask does, it applies an image to your face. And so we're using that functionality, but kind of using that resulting image to both feed a post-effect texture and then also feed a mask to a camera. And what that's going to allow us to do is, on the first example, kind of distort an image on the screen with your face. And then the second example, actually put something in the user's mouth, like a tongue or a lollipop or something like that. But I think we should just dive into the text first and get started. So wanted, again, to talk about the new text component added to Lens Studio 2.0 and go into a little more detail about some of its functionality. So Amir's going to add a screen text object. You can also add a text object. The difference is the screen text is going to be attached to the screen, and then the add object, normal text, will be positioned in the 3D space, so in the world. But in this case, we're going to walk through the screen text. So with the screen text selected, it's attached to the orthographic camera. Amir selected it. We're going to go over to the inspector panel. In the inspector panel, we'll see the new text component that was added in Lens Studio 2.0. So the first obvious thing is we can change the text. So right now it's set to text, but let's set it to something different, like your name.
Yeah.
Let's do Amir.
Okay.
Okay. So, oops.
Yeah.
So this is now set to Amir.
Amir.
And so the text is now set to Amir. You can obviously set it to whatever you want. We're going to skip dynamic text. I want to come back to that. But right now, we'll do some pretty basic set tuning. The first one is the font size, so how big the text is. This font size, you know, it's an actual font. So as it scales, it'll not get kind of low resolution because it's not being driven by an image. So as you're kind of scaling it up, it should be as high resolution as you make it. So the next thing is the custom font. So currently it's using kind of your system's default font or your device's default font, but we can always add a custom font by dragging a TTF or OTF into our resources panel, or in the resources panel going to add new font and selecting from one of the built-in custom fonts. So we'll select one, and then we're just going to drag it to the custom font field to change the custom font. But again, if you have a font, for example, you have a font that's a TTF or OTF on your computer, you could just do add new in the resources panel and import files, or drag and drop it into the resources panel. So we've set our custom font. Next, we can kind of play with some of the alignment settings. So these alignment settings are very similar to what you might see in, let's say, you know, a Microsoft Word or Excel, where it's going to align the text within the box that contains it. So right now, the box that contains the text is actually the entire screen. So you'll see as Amir presses like the vertical or bottom alignment, it's going to bring the text to either the top or bottom of that screen. The other thing is he's also able to change the size of that box by, in the scene panel, dragging the size. So you'll see he's kind of dragging it up and down. And then the horizontal, vertical, bottom alignments still work, but within the confines of that rectangle. Obviously, also horizontal alignment works as well. So if you want it center aligned, left aligned, right aligned, again, people that have a Microsoft Word background or something similar should be fairly comfortable here. Okay, so the next thing we want to test is overflow. So let's pick a longer string. So a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Let's do that. Also, Star Wars Land opened today, so anybody that's going, you're very lucky. I really want to go.
Yeah, let me change the color so we can see it.
Cool.
Something like that.
Okay, so a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and you'll see that it's actually kind of intelligently wrapping inside of this box. So as Amir, we'll play with the horizontal overflow. It's currently set to wrap by default, but he could change it to, for example, overflow, which means it's going to kind of be centered and overflow past the box, or truncate, which will actually make it so it's basically trying to fit the beginning of the text and then cropping it off at the box. And similarly, there's also ability for you to kind of set similar settings in the vertical overflow. The next thing we'll look at is the fill mode's actually really cool. So currently it's a color, but you can actually change the fill mode to a texture. Why don't we just add something from Giphy here?
Okay.
Just to... yeah, whatever. Looking good. Sure. This is going to look really bad, but just to get the point across. So you can actually fill this with a texture, and this texture is now filling the font. And so, for example, if you wanted like a leopard print font, you would bring in a leopard print texture and then apply it as the texture for the texture fill mode. Let's go back to color. And then additionally, you can add an outline and there's or a drop shadow. This is very similar to our older label component. The purpose of the text component is to replace label component. So we definitely suggest using the new text component. But if you had used label component before, you're kind of familiar with these settings for outline and drop shadow. Fun fact here is that the same fill mode that settings that we have. So if you go to outline, let's change the outline to a texture fill mode. And then set that texture to that, yep. And so now that texture is actually applied to just the outline. And so in the same way you can change the texture of the font, you can also change the texture of the outline and also the drop shadow. Okay, last thing, kind of the coolest thing of the new text component is the dynamic text functionality. So let's clear out this, and so what we want to do is add a dynamic text. So we're going to clear this out and we're going to insert dynamic text. You just press insert and you have a number of options here. So altitude, birth date, the user's birth date, city, date, day of the week, display name, so there's Snapchat display name, the month, the temperature outside, even the weather. So this is all available as dynamic text. So let's add day of the week. And so here, we're going to add this as day of the week. When you add them, they're sort of just treated like individual characters in your string. So you'll see day of the week here. So let's say today is Thursday. And so today is day of the week, dynamic text. But what's actually happening here is it's replacing day with whatever dynamic text the devices or Snapchat's reporting back. So in this case, it's Thursday. But if we did this stream on Friday, it would be reporting back Friday. And you could do that for day of the week, Snapchat username. One of the cool use cases here is, let's say you have you've made like a little game as a lens. You can have like the high score for the user with their Snapchat username. So Travis, high score. And all you would need to do that without any scripting is to be able to, you simply add it as a dynamic text. And again, it's sort of treated as a character, so you could delete it just like a character in the string. So that's text. Again, pretty powerful functionality, especially with the dynamic text. And all that I said, all that functionality, it's all scriptable. So if you go to the website in the API section under the component text, you'll see exposed all of those parameters for understanding how to script all of that stuff. So for example, you could dynamically set the color of the font or whatever you want. Okay, that's text. Did I cover everything there?
I think
so.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Okay, so what's next?
So let's create the distort effect that distort based on the phase step. And then, so before we start, I prepared this texture. So this texture is like a depth map of a face. So what it does is just like the depth map, the depth texture is using like a color between just like 0 to 255. So what like a black color is just like make the distort go backward.
The farthest thing back in the camera.
Yeah.
Right.
And the white is just like distort everything and just like bring it to forward.
Closest thing to the camera.
And the gray, like, which is just 128, the exactly gray number is just like not moving anything and not distorting anything at all. So we're gonna start with importing this texture in and create the face mask. And in a face mask, you can see just like the image is attached to my face. So it's used for just like placing, like replacing the face. So what we're gonna do right now is just gonna apply the depth mask to the texture. Now you can see that your texture is on my face.
So this is kind of, the face mask is, you know, like Amir said, kind of the same function, what you would use to put makeup on your face. But here we're using it in you know, the same functionality, but for a different purpose. In this case, it's to apply a depth mask to your face, right?
So for people that doesn't know, there is a button here called Detect Face. So if we import like an image that is actually a face, it's automatically detect the face and attach these points to the exact position on the face. But in this case, the image that we have is not look like a face, so we need to do this manually.
Just real quick, there's a question, how did you get the depth mask? And yeah, the answer is he made it. He made it. He made it. Yeah, triple jinx there. So yeah, we're gonna have the depth mask available though when we share the project out for sure. But can you kind of talk about how one would make a depth mask if they were gonna go about this in a different program?
So you can create it in Maya, just like exporting the depth output out of the Maya in the camera, and also you can just like paint it, or like there is so many ways that you can create that.
Right. So really what we're aiming to build is basically some mask that goes from white to black and anywhere in between.
Yeah. So now we're gonna move these points to match that face. So you can just like do this by clicking and dragging, but that's gonna take a years to do that. So what we're gonna do is click and hold and select all of the points, and we're gonna scale all of them to fit my face. Okay.
So we're just trying to align the mask to be roughly. Again, if this was something that looked more like a face and less like a scary ghost, you could click the Detect Face button. But because this is kind of more an abstract representation of a face, Detect Face isn't doing too well.
Yeah. So now you can see the face mask is kind of on my face and it looked good. So let's remove the background. So to remove the background, you just click on your camera and click the clear color so you can see the input of the camera. Right now, the input of the camera is actually what camera sees, which we call device camera texture. We're gonna remove that. And now you have like a spooky lens already.
Good, stop here.
Yeah.
This is good, I like it. Spooky lens for Halloween, guys.
So now what we have is a texture that is just like the black is moving backward and the white is moving forward, distort forward. So we don't want the background to just like move backward. We just want it to be just like not moving. So what we're gonna do in the clear color, we're just gonna change it to 128, which is exactly gray.
I see.
And now you see some sharp edges. I want my face to be more blended in so we don't get weird distortion on here. So in order to just like make it more blend to the background, we're gonna go to the face mask and in the blend mode, select screen. And now you can just like also play with the alpha and see. Like let's start from here. Okay, so I'm just gonna change my camera name to call it depth camera and create the new layer. So
Yeah, this is kind of just a cool lens as is.
yeah.
Play with this. This is like you could like change it to blue and it would be kind of like you know, like Star Wars hologram.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so we have this one. So now we're finished with the depth camera. So now we're gonna add the pose effect that distort using the feed of this
Right.
Render target.
Because ultimately we want to take this image that's being rendered now. That's not our actual lens. We're going to be using that to feed the distortion. So we're not actually rendering this to the screen. We're using it to feed the distortion.
Exactly. So I'm gonna import this texture so we can easily see like where is distorting exactly. So I'm importing it and then gonna create the new screen image and place it here and make it to stretch through my whole, no, let's do fill.
So this is the image we want to distort.
Yes. And we're gonna create a new render target. We're gonna call it pose effect E. I'm gonna try to be clean and organized. Okay, that's nice. And I'm gonna apply my render target to the camera and change the main render target to the pose effect that we just created. So now we only see the grid. We don't see anything from the depth
Right.
camera.
The depth camera is not doing anything for the project anymore.
Yes. So, and then I'm gonna go create the pose effects and select distortion, which we wanna distort the image. So now it's created a new camera. We don't need that camera. We're just gonna delete it. And now you can see the distortion is not affecting the image. It's because it's in a different layer. So my image is on the orthographics layer and distortion is on default layer. If we change it to orthographic, it's gonna have that distortion effect. But it's animating and we don't want that to be animated. We're just gonna select the distortion material. So when you always create any pose effects, it creates a material. So we're just gonna, and you can customize the value with selecting that material and just like play with this value. So what I'm gonna do is gonna click on a linear speed and just like zero out everything so it's not animated anymore. And you can see this is like how distort is the image.
There's a question.
Yeah.
Is it lens or lens with an E? It's lens without an E. It's L-E-N-S. Yeah. Hopefully that clears that up.
So, and the magic when it's happened, that when we change the texture to our depth render target, now you can see.
It's awesome. So now you're distorting the image, which was the grid, with the distortion texture being built by the camera.
Exactly.
Yep.
And you can play with the alpha and just like see
how much you want it to distort.
Yeah.
And like obviously too, if you wanted to tune the distortion or how it distorts around the face, like not only can you tune the alpha here, but you could also tune the actual distortion texture.
Exactly.
So if you want, if, for example, if the nose was too pointing or you wanted a more kind of chubbier nose, you can kind of play with the distortion texture itself in Photoshop.
Yeah. Okay. So I think let's now what we're gonna do is just like adding my own face and put this on top of my face. So we cannot do it in here. We need a new render target because we don't want the distortion apply onto my face. So what we're gonna do again is creating a new camera and new render target. So what I'm gonna do is just like duplicate my orthographic camera and change the layer. Let's go back to default. And let's call it main camera. Did I spell it right? Yeah. Remove the distortion. And in the main image, I'm gonna change it to default. And then I'm gonna have my device camera texture. And then if I don't create a new render target and add the post effect render target here, you can see what's gonna happen here. Nothing gonna happen because it's just like we're overriding on that render target, so we need a new render target on top of that. So I'm gonna call this main render target and feed from device camera and set it here, main render target. It's gonna, and now set it here. Okay. So now what we're gonna do is just change this image blending mode to multiply.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So now we're applying the image to the camera feed.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And you can easily change the texture of, like, instead of having this kind of like checkerboard, to just like anything else, like a rainbow. Gonna port my rainbow and put it here. And let's go change the mode to screen because the background is.
So now it's kind of like a light streak.
Yeah. You can see it just like, and you can play with the values, just like, can go crazy.
Let's add a Giphy. Is it going to work with a Giphy asset?
Let's see. Should we
what
go?
do we do? Stars? I don't know. Stars?
Stars.
What's going to be good here? Scroll down. These sparkles right here?
Okay.
That should be cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here and where's that? Okay, it's here.
Yeah. Sick. So works with obviously animated texture too. Works with anything.
Yeah.
And again, like the depth mask could be whatever you want. So it's, you know, it could be, I don't know, even your name as the depth mask, and it would be pushing out your name as the texture.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Go back to your light one. That one was better than my star one. Star one's cool. I stand by it.
Okay, let's go back to this one.
So sick.
Now you can see in my mouth.
Yeah.
Now moving,
What
you can
there?
fix that with just like.
Oh, I see.
Click on the draw mouth.
Got it.
And it's gonna fix that. And also, what you can do is, let me reduce the distortion. It's too much, so I can see it on my face. And reduce it a little bit. Okay. So what else? Another thing that we can do is just like, if you don't want it to have it on the side, you can of course add segmentation here. Like, let's do face and put it as a mask texture, and now you can just like see it on your face.
That's cool. So it could be like really subtle too.
Yeah.
Like maybe alpha that out like really low.
Yeah. On the
texture.
On the texture, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can just like go.
You know, the amount of distortion you can play with.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, hopefully this is useful. I'll also kind of state the obvious that, you know, this is all totally capable without any additional scripting. We're just kind of playing with feeding render textures to the post effects and getting this kind of cool effect. And also it's using face mask in this way that sort of wasn't intended to be used. Well, I wouldn't say that, but it's using it in a way that's not obvious. So face mask, you kind of, again, put something on your face like makeup, but here we're actually using the face mask to drive something else. So yeah, and we'll provide this project. Specifically, I think most usefully in this project is one, how the cameras are set up, but really that depth mask is going to be pretty helpful as a good starting point. But again, you can make that depth mask anything you want.
Exactly.
Cool.
Okay.
Anything else?
I think that's all for this one.
Okay.
Let's do the next project.
Yes. I'm gonna call this the jawbreaker project because it looks like you have a jawbreaker in your mouth. The jawbreaker candy, if anybody has been to a boardwalk or carnival. Okay, so jawbreaker. How does this work?
Okay, let's do again face mask.
Another project. Yeah,
Another
we're doing two today.
Yeah.
And we'll post both of them back to the. We are spoiled with education. Awesome. Yeah, I'm hoping you guys. I'm really excited to see some distortion lenses.
Yeah.
I think there's so many possibilities with that.
So I just import two texture, which is black and white. So I'm not sure which one exactly that I'm gonna use in final, but.
So we're using face mask again.
Yeah.
So image attached to the face.
And this one, it doesn't have anything. You didn't need to set any point or anything. And I'm gonna change the background to black. So I'm gonna create a mask.
Right. So this is like a mask image that can be used to drive a camera. Could this be applied to other post effects? Yeah. Well. Yeah, which post effects take in an input texture? Anything that takes in an input texture, you can imagine using that as the input texture. So what else could the distortion kind of texture? I guess it could be applied as a mask.
Yeah.
That could be kind of cool.
Yeah,
so it would actually you can apply it as a mask to a camera and it could mask out based off of the kind of the distortion map that it's seeing. But yeah, effectively, and then very similar to this example, all you're doing with that camera is making a black and white texture. So anywhere you could use a black and white texture, like a mask or a distortion map or whatever, you can use that texture for. So we're going to show you another way to use a black and white texture in a different way.
Yeah. So now you can see we have the gradient going on. I don't want it to be, because when I just like my lips is like this, I can see the black line, so you can just like click on no opacity texture, which is.
So now it's going to be a very sharp mask of the face.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm gonna keep it like this for now, and then again, changing the name, I'm gonna call it mask camera, and create the new layer. Call it mask layer. Okay, uncheck that one and set this one to draw on the mask layer. Okay.
So this whole setup is preparing it to be basically a separate render target from the main.
Exactly. Now with this one, I'm just gonna create a new camera. Okay, and then I'm gonna create the new render target. So I don't want to see that mask. I'm gonna call this main render target and set it to the main camera. And then in sync config again, set the live target and capture target to.
Wait, let's just try what we said, because I think what I just said is going to work. Now, so you have the black and white mask as a separate render target, and now you have a camera that can be masked, right?
Yeah.
So let's mask that camera. What does that look like?
White.
Oh, I thought that would work.
Yeah.
Is something wrong with the mask?
Maybe main render target.
All right, we'll come back to that. I don't want to distract you.
All right. So I'm gonna add a head binding and remove the face occluder because we don't need it.
Yeah.
And add sphere here. And set the head binding to my mouth center. Where is that? Okay, it's here. And
so this is gonna be our jawbreaker.
yeah. Just like make it smaller and put it in my mouth.
So Amir has a jawbreaker in his mouth, but it doesn't look like he has a jawbreaker in his mouth because it's not being occluded when his mouth is open and closed, and that's where the mask texture is going to come in.
Exactly. So what I'm going to do is create this screen image. And in this screen image, I'm going to create a new unlit material and apply it to the image. And in here, I'm going to...
I know why that didn't work, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because it's feeding the device camera texture. So it's just putting device camera texture over device camera texture.
Yeah. And in this one, I'm just gonna set the base texture as a device camera texture, and set the opacity to mask render target.
Yes. Wait, okay, so explain what you did here. So the input texture for the
screen
image is the device camera.
Yes.
And then it's being masked out by the mask that you're driving from the mask camera.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, you've put a 3D model in your mouth that is being masked out by that camera.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And you could make that jawbreaker bigger or smaller.
Yeah. And there is an area here. You can see that there is a space going on in here. Which is because our mask texture is not drawn on the screen size.
Oh.
So we can fix it by checking the screen UV transform and set the source to screen UV and set these two on the screen UV.
Oh, I see. So it just basically wasn't stretched in the same way that the screen was. Oh, okay, cool. Awesome. So yeah, this is great for spider in the mouth lens. Yes, that's good. There's many mouth ideas, like, a tongue that when you open the mouth triggers an animation for the tongue to roll out, like a spawn, I guess.
Yeah.
Also the alien mouth alien, from Aliens, when you open your mouth, alien comes out. That would be really good.
Yeah.
So you would use the mouth as the what else? There's a jawbreaker, vampire teeth.
Oh yeah.
Any teeth, anything teeth related. Pretty
Cuckoo
cool.
clock.
Cuckoo clock.
Yeah, we had the
cuckoo clock.
project.
Oh yeah, we should have done this.
Yeah,
Cuckoo
it was
clock.
our first stream, right?
Yeah, first stream was cuckoo clock, and we had. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, this was sort of a problem with that cuckoo clock.
Yeah,
We just kind of hand waved and we're like, just make the animation really fast. It doesn't matter. So here you can actually have the cuckoo clock come out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Cool. Would this work with multiple people? I feel like this takes up a lot of resources. It should work with multiple people.
Yeah,
so
you
what's
can
the
just
difference?
you can have lots of this and use and set these to different index.
Yeah, actually, we could be able to get this working, right? So this is face index, or you would duplicate it, no?
Yeah.
And set the face index. So duplicate, set the face index to 1. So I would drive 1, and Amir would drive 1.
Yeah.
Then we need to duplicate the head binding, set the face index there to 1.
Yeah.
Theoretically. We both have jawbreakers. Yeah, so the question is, would this work? I feel like this takes up a lot of resources.
This one?
I think this one's actually pretty okay. So this is, if we're doing 2 people, it's
only using 1.
So some resources you have to look out for. One thing you have to watch out for is adding render targets. Render targets adds basically processing power on the GPU and CPU. And so you kind of want to generally just try to stay low in the render targets, but like 3 render targets is totally reasonable. I would say once you start hitting like 5 to 6 render targets, then you're gonna have to really pay attention to your frame rate. Then the other things is face mask. We have 2 face masks here and 2 head bindings. Not super expensive. anytime you're working with two heads, you're gonna want to pay attention to your frame rate, and also memory consumption. But in this case, if it's the jawbreaker specifically, I think we're fine. It's actually not very different than, let's say, if we had two 3D models attached to our head and and makeup on our face. It's very similar. The mask part of this equation is not very expensive. Wait, did that just loop? Having deja vu. I guess I'm looping. Stuck in the Matrix. All right. That was awesome. I'm very excited to both see distortion lenses and also weird mouth lenses. There's so much you can do. Amir will kind of post these projects later on. Also, really excited to see anything you guys can do with text. There's a lot of power in the text component as well. OOC wallpaper. I legit put a task in Jira. We use that for task management to create the wallpaper. We've just been a little bit behind. That's my fault. But we will work on it. Yeah. And when I say we, probably Amir. Yeah. We have some ideas though. Any other questions? Andy says, stick around on the Discord server. Please stick around on ours. We need you guys. We'll try to join in there sometime. But also always feel free to use, the Lens Studio forum and the support email. I mean, we're pretty much checking the support email and the forum every day. So, if there are any questions, always happy to help there. And it's a little easier for us to track than, chat room type thing. But yeah, we'll try to stick around the Discord server occasionally. Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining in, and looking forward to next month, which will probably be towards the end of June. I think we're kind of planning last Thursday a month, but we might actually change that a little bit. Kind of dependent. We're kind of maybe playing with the hours and the days, but we'll obviously let you guys know in advance of that change. Petition for weekly streams. That's a good idea. I don't know if we can keep up. We'll think about it. But until next time, again, thanks for joining in, and hopefully these projects are going to be super helpful for you. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.